What's good, everybody? It's Sean P. the Bluff God. Hey! And today we're doing a One Piece 2021 year end review where I will be going over all the chapters from chapter 1000 to 1035. A lot of people might be thinking, hey, chapter 1036 has released in 2021, but it hasn't officially released, and it doesn't officially release till 2022. So we will be stopping at we will be stopping at 1035 and beginning at chapter 1000, which officially dropped in 2021 as well. So let's get this started. Okay, so we start off with chapter 1000, Straw Hat Luffy, where we see Yamato sharing Oden's journal with Momonosuke. And we also get a flashback of Yamato when she met Ace and how Ace told Yamato all about his brother Luffy, and where we see Yamato give Ace his Vivre card that we seen earlier in the series. Luffy and Zoro finally make it to the top of the roof, and they meet up with Law, Killer, and Kid to confront Kaido and Big Mom. Luffy rescues Kinemon and delivers a very impactful blow on Kaido. Next, we have chapter 1001, Battle of Monsters on Onigashima. Kaido recovers and attacks Luffy, barely grazing him with a Thunder Bagua, but still pretty much sending Luffy flying and doing a little bit of damage. Big Mom tries to attack Luffy with Prometheus, but Zoro showcases that he can cut fire by cutting the attack and saving Luffy. And then we see a showcase from each supernova who each land successful attacks on Kaido. Chapter 1002, Four Emperors versus New Generation. We see Kaido go into his dragon form to go on the offense against the supernova. But despite we see the supernova manage very well against Kaido, and they each deliver a coordinated attack on Kaido. Zoro saves Luffy from a blast breath from Kaido, and he tries to attack Kaido back but misses that attack, and then gets attacked by Big Mom. And at this point, Big Mom has officially joined the fight, and we see Gear 4 Luffy land a flurry of Kong Gatlins on Kaido. Next, we have chapter 1003, Night on the Board. Now, Luffy continues his flurry on Kaido in Gear 4, but after he pretty much knocks down Kaido, he is feeling the effects of his Gear 4 transformation. And then we see Big Mom go in for attack on the down Luffy, but she lets her guard down, and we see Law hit her with a counter shot. Now, Kid and Killer is trying to capitalize on Kaido being down, and they going for an attack, but Kaido quickly recovers, and we see Kaido attack them with the Dragon Twister. Now, we see Zoro pretty much cut Kaido's scales with his own version of a Dragon Twister, a Black Rope Dragon Twister, and then Kaido retaliates. And then the chapter ends with, well, we see CP0 pretty much talking about the battle, and the chapter ends with Kaido going into hybrid form, but we don't see it. We see him in a silhouette at this point. Next is chapter 1004, Millet Dumplings. Now, this chapter has Otama. Pretty much, she's in Onigashima, and she has all her Smile Fruit users under her control. And at this point, they're pretty much passing out her Millet Dumplings to other Smile Fruit users in order to convert them to the Alliance side. And she also has the help of Usopp and Nami while they're riding on Kamachio. And we see Usopp pretty much using his slingshot and his aim to, shoot these Smile Fruit users with these Millet Dumplings. We also get General Frankie fighting Sasaki in Sasaki's Triceratops form. Nami and Usopp and Otama are riding on Kamachio while Alti is chasing them. Now we see Frankie hitting a big attack on Sasaki and Nami hitting a big attack on Ulti. Now we see Sanji trapped in Black Maria's webbing, and Black Maria is pretty much demanding Sanji to call out to Robin to help him. And the chapter pretty much ends with a mystery figure helping out the very injured Akazawa samurai. Next, we have chapter 1005, Demon Child. Now, Black Maria is torturing Sanji and demanding that he calls Robin to save him. And Sanji does. He complies. Or he calls Robin, and a lot of people are shocked at why he would do that. And Robin, along with Brooke, both save Sanji. We get kind of an idea of what the Mary surveillance system is that's ran by Bao Wang. We got all those little animals with the cloth with the eye on it in front of their face. How they're part of the Mary surveillance system, and they pretty much act as like surveillance as well as a PA system almost. So we also see Jack recover. He's back up and being active. And then we end the chapter with Black Maria showing off her back tattoo and wielding her weapon that looks like a staff with a wheel on the end of it and a face in the middle. Next, we have chapter 1006, The Honorable Hyogoro. So we see that Momonosuke is being hunted by the Beast Pirates, but at this point he's being protected by Yamato. We see Peril Sparrow has the best of Wanda and Carrot, since they don't have access to their Sulong form because the moon is currently covered. As the Ice Oni Plague continues to spread, we see Marco pretty much fighting King and Queen by himself and doing a good job holding them off. I think that's the best he can do, is hold them off. And we see that Chopper is racing against the clock in order to find a cure for this Ice Oni Plague. You know, seeing how he's also affected by it as well. And we also see Hyogoro affected by this plague, but he also come to accept that he is going to die. So his plan is to actually be executed by one of his allies before the Ice Oni Plague fully takes control of him, and then he acts like a wild beast that they have to kill anyway. Next, we have chapter 1007, Mr. Raccoon Dog. So at the beginning of this chapter, we see how the Beast Pirates, the Beast Pirate underlings are pretty much begging for Queen to save them and give them the antidote. But Queen sort of reprimands them. He yells at them saying, look, you guys are worthless. You guys are failure of because these are pleasures. So these are the ones who ate the devil fruit, the smile fruit, and they failed. They didn't get anything. He said y'all failed at doing that. So this is the best you guys can do, is die for a cause. And we see Hyogoro about to succumb to his death, his execution of sorts. But we see Chopper come out of nowhere and block the sword that is pretty much about to decapitate Hyogoro, which it looks like Chopper is using armament hockey. So if that is the case, it is definitely a confirmation that Chopper can use armament hockey. So he pretty much saves Hyogoro, and he releases his cure through a cannon. Now we see everybody kind of thanking Chopper, calling him a raccoon dog, and we get Queen insulting Chopper, and Chopper gets frustrated, goes into his monster point form, and he pretty much slaps Queen and says, look, I'm not a raccoon dog, I'm a reindeer. We also see CP0 talk about the supposed failed artificial devil fruit that Vegapunk made that Momonosuke ended up consuming. So it really wasn't a failure, but to them, they believe it's a failure. And then we end the chapter with quote unquote Odin appearing in front of the Akazawa samurai. Next, we have chapter 1008, leader of the Atayama Thieves Brigade, Ashura Doji. So Ashura Doji end up getting stabbed, proving that this fake Odin isn't indeed Odin. And we see the fake Odin about to blow himself up, but Ashura Doji sacrifices himself to save his comrades. So after all that, we see the Akazawa running off to find Kandro. But before they can really start looking for him, they run into Jack the Drought, who's back up. So Inuyasha decides to stay back and fight Jack while the rest of them run off. Then we also get to see that Orochi is indeed alive, and him and Fukurokoju are both pretty much burning the castle. And then we go back on top of the roof where we finally get Kaido's hybrid form. Next we have chapter 1009, Naraku. So the Akazawa samurai runs into Orochi, who, they discover is alive. And Orochi goes into his Hydra form confidently, believing that he can take on the Akazawa samurai since they're currently weak. But they quickly dispatch of him, and after defeating him, Raizo stays back to fight Fukurokoju. Kaido and Big Mom goes for a big combo attack that Zoro somehow is able to deflect. So we see Luffy fighting Kaido in his hybrid form, but Kaido is pretty much dominating this encounter. And we see Law, Kid, Zoro, and Killer all combine to take on Big Mom. But they have a strategy, and their strategy is pretty much to separate Zeus and isolate Zeus and get rid of Big Mom, which they successfully accomplish. They lock Zeus up into a box, and they pretty much have Big Mom falling off of Onigashima. Next, we have chapter 1010, Color of the Supreme King. So Big Mom is calling out for Zeus to save her, but since Zeus is pretty much locked up with Kid's metal, she doesn't really have any success at calling out to him. So Prometheus, pretty much escapes and runs off to save Big Mom. Now Kid and Killer looks at it like, okay, Prometheus is going to go save her, so she's not completely out of the fight. So let's go ensure that she doesn't get back into this fight. So we see Prometheus wanting to talk to Big Mom about Zeus. Now, it's not what it says at the moment, but that's kind of what we learn a little later in the upcoming chapters. So we see Luffy is pretty much down, and Zoro sees this as a moment that it's his final stand. Zoro's kind of he's on his last legs after some of the feats that he pulled off, and we see Zoro go into his Ashura form and attack Kaido. During this attack, Zoro gets a cut with Emma that cuts Kaido pretty deep. Even Kaido kind of compliments Zoro, telling him that, this cut, this scar will remain with me for the rest of my life. And then after the fact, Zoro kind of goes down from being tired, from taking enough damage, and then Law talks about attacking Kaido, but we see Kaido rush to Law and pretty much hit Law with a Thunder Bagua. And then we see Luffy get up, hitting Kaido with a flurry of attacks and knocking Kaido down. Next, we have chapter 1011, The Code of Sweet Beans. So, Big Mom returns to attack Kid and Killer with a new homie that she named Hera, and she ended up blowing them back into the castle through Onigashima, through the skull, through Onigashima, into the castle. So because of this attack that Big Mom hits on Kid and Killer, it weakens Killer's devil fruit enough for Zeus to become free. And so Law takes Zeus and Zoro off the roof, and then he goes to pursue Big Mom in order to prevent her from making things worse after Zeus reunites with her. So we see Kaido get back up, and his fight with Luffy continues. And then Kid and Killer recovers, and they are off to go intercept Big Mom. But they are intercepted by Hawkins. And Killer decides to stay back to fight Hawkins. So we see Nami, Usopp, and Otama riding on Kamachio, and they run into Big Mom. But the thing is, Big Mom remembers Otama. She remembers the kindness of Otama. So we see her pretty much punch Page One, who is chasing the Usopp and Nami group. So Big Mom attacks Page One to protect Otama. So now we have chapter 1012, Itch. So we see the Akazawa samurai pretty much running off to find Kandro. We see Izu and Kawamoto, they split off from the group. And then we see Nekomamushi, who splits off in order to go find Perospero and avenge Pedro. And then we get Yamato, who's protecting Momonosuke. She decides to leave with this little doll to pretend like it's Momonosuke and kind of act as a decoy to lead the pursuers away from Momonosuke, as she leaves Momonosuke with Odin's journal to read for himself. So we see Sanji running around looking for something to do as he's carrying a bandaged up Zoro. And we kind of get a little flashback of how it led to that point of Zoro being bandaged up. We see Law come back into the castle area, hand off Zoro to Sanji, and then Sanji goes into a quiet place, wraps up Zoro in these bandages, and then he keeps it moving. So after seeing her brother Page One get knocked down by Big Mom, we see Ulti pick a fight with Big Mom. And at this point, Nami and Usopp sees this as an opportunity to run away from the fight. Let them two fight. But in the process, Ulti gives chase to them, hitting Kamachio, and this hurts Otama. This saddens Otama that her friend is hurt. So this angers, it really upsets Big Mom that, her friend Otama is upset. And not only did this piss off Big Mom, this pisses off Nami because she decides to stay and fight, even though she doesn't see herself having much option. She's like, you know what, I have to fight Ulti. And we see Nami use her climb attack in order to knock out Ulti, even though it's temporary. Next, we have chapter 1013, Anarchy in the Big Mom. So we see Nami continuing her attack on Ulti, but Ulti ended up getting the upper hand on Nami, and she's able to grab Nami. So at this point, we see Big Mom one-hit KO Ulti after doing a combined attack with Prometheus, Napoleon, and Hera. And then after that, we see Zeus show up, try to get back into Big Mom's graces. And at this point, Big Mom pretty much says, look, Zeus, you're going to become food for Hera. So there you go. Zeus kind of protests and say he'll just go away. But, she said if she lets Zeus go away, then he's going to be a soul thief. And she cannot let that happen. So Zeus makes a last stand to save Nami, but that's easily stopped by Big Mom, who grabs Zeus and then feeds her to Hera. So Nami tries to save Zeus, but presumably she fails, and that leads Nami and Usopp to take Otama and run away. And this pretty much pisses off Big Mom because she think, she lost another friend, and Big Mom has abandonment issues. So now she's angry at Otama as well. But as Big Mom lashes out and tries to give chase to Usopp, Nami, and Otama, Kid stops her. And then we go back to the top of the roof where we got Kaido seemingly crying from disappointment after we see Luffy falling from Onigashima into the sea. So, chapter 1014, The Ham. So, we see Luffy falling from Onigashima and he pretty much lands into the sea. We see Chopper throwing Queen around, but to no avail. He's not really doing any damage to Queen. Queen's kind of playing with him and, not really taking it serious. Still attacking, but not really taking Chopper that serious. So Kaido pretty much calls Bao Wang and uses, Bao Wang's ability to her PA system ability. I don't know if it's an ability or how it works, but he's using Bao Wang to make this announcement through Onigashima that Luffy has been defeated. And this takes like an immediate impact on the morale of the alliance, except for most of the Straw Hats, like Zoro and Sanji. Then we see Kinemon and Kiku find Momonosuke. And at this point, Odin, the fake Odin, appears, and Okiku goes to fight this fake Odin again, but she still has that hesitation. Her conscience still gives her the hesitation, and it gives fake Odin an opening to pretty much stab Okiku with a fatal stabbing through her body. So after the stabbing, we discover that this isn't just another fake clone. This is actually Kandro, and this pisses off Kinemon, and Kinemon finishes off Kandro in a swift attack. One swift attack. But right after we get Kaido showing up and he pretty much bashes Kinemon's body in. What it looks like he bashes Kinemon down to his lower body. And it presumably kills Kinemon. Presumably. So next we have chapter 1015, Chains. So we see Queen about to finish off Chopper, but Sanji saves Chopper, and as he decides to take on Queen, Sanji gives Zoro to Chopper and tells Chopper to treat Zoro. So everyone in the alliance is in disarray from this Luffy defeat, but Momonosuke comes onto the PA system, the Mary system, and he tells all the samurai, like, look, keep fighting. Luffy is not dead. Luffy is still alive. Keep fighting. So we see Kaido finish off Kinemon by impelling a sword through his body. Presumably, of course, because we learn later that that's not the case. And then Kaido goes off to confront Momonosuke and Shinobu, but Momonosuke and Shinobu falls off Onigashima, and Kaido kind of just leaves it alone. Says, oh, I guess he assumed that they're going to die, and he leaves it alone. So then we see Zeus, who is now in Nami's climb attack. So there's somehow Zeus was able to transfer his soul into Nami's climb attack before Hera could finish eating him. And then finally we get Law joining the fight with Big Mom. And then we see Yamato pretty much confront Kaido in order to fight him. Chapter 1016, It's Me, Otama. So we see Tengoyama Hitetsu with Otoku at the Fire Festival enjoying it. We see Otoku, she's thinking about her dad, She's thinking about Yasui, who we seen die earlier in the series. And, I guess she wants to give honor to her father at the Fire Festival. We see CP0, they're discussing the power dynamics of the battle currently as it is. And we see a reincarnated Zeus talking to Nami about how he survived, you know, being eaten from Hera. And that's when we see Alti return, because she ain't completely down. And after that, Nami pretty much puts her back down with a combined attack with Zeus. We see Otama grab hold of the PA system, the Mary system that now everybody has access to at this point. And, she's sort of preparing to make some type of an announcement, but, she's kind of jittery, scary because, you got Queen yelling at her. You got, some of the Beast Pirates wanting to attack her. So she's, at this point, she's just scared to make her announcement. At the end of the chapter, we see Yamato telling Kaido how she's pretty much going to roam the seas with Luffy. And we see Kaido go into his hybrid form immediately. Which, it kind of speaks a lot about Yamato's strength. Moving on to chapter 1017, The Order. So Otama gives her order to the beast pirates that are under her control to change sides. Sanji is about to fight Queen, and Queen is in his hybrid form, his man beast form. That's what he calls it, or that's what the soldiers around him call it. And Queen calls Sanji Judge's son, and that just pisses off Sanji right there. So Chopper and Dr. Miyagi are both treating Zoro, and Dr. Miyagi offers a treatment of a mink drug that will help Zoro recover, like fastly recover, like give him almost mink regeneration abilities. But the thing is, the drawbacks of it is after it wears off, the pain is going to be way worse. But, Zoro doesn't care. He just wants to get back into the fight. So, he's like, hey, just hit me with it. I don't care. Now, at the end of the chapter, Who's Who is fighting Jinbei. And Who's Who is pretty much telling Jinbei how he used to be part of CP9, how he had just as much potential as Rob Lucci did, but it was one mistake he made, and that was he was in charge of a ship that was carrying the Gumu Gumu no Mi, Luffy's devil fruit, but it was stolen by Shanks. Next, we have chapter 1018, Jinbei versus Who's Who. So the chapter starts with Otama becoming a target for giving that order, but she's protected by her smile fruit users under her control. And CP0 is, now they're talking about the power shift. Now that a lot of the Beast Pirates sort of betrayed the Beast Pirates, a lot of the Beast Pirate soldiers betrayed their side and went to the Alliance. And then they also talk about how there's a specific somebody who must die. Implying who's who. Since we're kind of, it's kind of the time and it's implying who's who, since he used to be CP9 but made that mistake and then, went to jail and escaped. So they're implying who's who pretty much. So who's who is pretty much talking about his grudge with Shanks and inherently Luffy, since he benefited from all this. And he also makes a reference of the sun god Nika and how how the slaves prayed to him, and how some guard was telling who's who about this sun god, and how sun god Nika almost became someone he prayed to just in order to keep his sanity and eventually get out of this torment. Who's Who also he also brings up the Sun Pirates and how they might be related to the sun god Nika, being called the Sun Pirates, and the fact that with Fisher Tiger, I think that's his name if I remember correctly, how he was the captain of the Sun Pirates and a former slave. So, but he's only really kind of pissing off Jinbei at this point. So Jinbei pretty much unleashes a flurry of attacks on who's who, pretty much knocking him out. So next we have chapter 1019, Hella Triceratops. So we see Law's crew pretty much saves Luffy from drowning. And the first thing Luffy asks for when he gains any type of consciousness, first thing he asks for is meat, of course. So Frankie is still fighting Sasaki, and Sasaki is pretty much flying around with his frill. And if you don't know what a frill is, it's kind of like that big old bone. It's kind of like a flap that Triceratops have. And he's kind of flying with it, using it like a propeller, which is weird. So after an intense fight, Frankie pretty much KOs Sasaki with a radical beam. And finally, we get a reveal of Yamato's devil fruit, which was a devil fruit that wasn't intended for her specifically. She only ate it because, Kaido would starve her sometimes as a form of torture. He would starve her and she was hungry, so she ate the devil fruit. But Kaido was really kind of holding it out for somebody else. So next we have chapter 1020, Robin versus Black Maria. So we get a reveal of Yamato's devil fruit name. She has the dog fruit, mythical type, Okuchi no Makami, a rare mythical wolf. So Kaido tells Yamato how it's his goal for her to rule over Wano in his steed, but Yamato wants to free Wano. Like, that's her goal. It's freeing Wano. So cutting to the Robin fight, we see Robin caught in this illusion that's kind of created by Black Maria's subordinates, and she sees her mother, she sees Dr. Clover, and she also sees Saul. So Robin snaps out of this illusion, and her and Brooke are pretty much forced to kind of evade Black Maria's weapon that it's creating this fire. It's spreading all this fire around. And them two are pretty much forced to evade these attacks. So Brooke disabled Black Maria's weapon, which is powered by a smile fruit user, which is what's causing all the fire. Then Brooke entrusts Black Maria to Robin while he goes off to fight all of Black Maria's subordinates. And Robin is pretty much cool with it. That's what she wants. She wants a one-on-one. I want a one-on-one. I wanted a one-on-one with her and Black Maria. I wanted to see Robin fight. and then Robin goes Susanoo mode. She pulls out her own little Susanoo to take on Black Maria. So Momonosuke finds Luffy, and then Luffy instructs Momonosuke to fly him back up to Onigashima in his dragon form. So next we have chapter 1021, Demon Neo. So Robin is fighting Black Maria in her Susanoo form, but is still having trouble getting past Black Maria's weapon and all her webbing. So as Robin is having trouble getting caught up in Black Maria's webbing, Black Maria's spider, her little spider form, like that she's attached to, it's kind of a weird devil fruit. The spider can spit out fire as well, which is kind of also causing fire to spread. So Robin uses the opportunity to palm strike the ceiling in order for the debris to fall and put out the fire. So we kind of get a flashback of Robin and her time during the revolution, or hanging with the revolutionaries, and they're sitting here trying to teach Robin how to fight, how to use some fighting techniques. And Koala, one thing Koala teaches is, using her palm, which we see Robin use a lot. And she also teaches her like holds and like strangle holds. So Robin goes into her new Demon Neo form and pretty much defeats Black Maria using a stranglehold that she learned during her time in the revolutionary. And at the same time, we see Brooke finishing off Black Maria's subordinates. Now back on the ground where Luffy and Momonosuke is, we see Caribou show up, and he has a bunch of meat stored that he pretty much gives. He's reluctant. He's reluctant to do it, but he gives Luffy the food so Luffy could pretty much recover. And at the same time, we get Momonosuke ask the Shinobu to pretty much age his body, turn him into a 28-year-old man, so he can be a bigger dragon than his small dragon form as a kid. Next, we have chapter 1022. The stars take the stage. So at this point, we have 15 minutes before Onigashima crashes into the flower capital, and all of the Tobiropo have pretty much been defeated. Raizo is still fighting Fukurokoju, and they're pretty much talking about their history together, and why Fukurokoju decided to become loyal to Orochi. Killer is fighting Hawkins, who is using kids' life as kind of a shield. So, Killer has to be careful of how he fights Hawkins. At this point on the performance floor, King and Queen is still causing a bunch of havoc, and Marco is pretty much out of the game. He can no longer keep up with fighting these two commanders. So he's pretty much out of the game, kinda out of the game. Now Sanji is still pretty much fighting. He's still pretty much fighting by himself at this point, and we see Peril Sparrow kind of aiming for Sanji, but Nikomamushi pretty much saves Sanji and takes on Peril Sparrow to avenge Pedro. So as Zoro is still pretty much out of the fight, King uses this opportunity to take out Zoro. But Marco makes one final last stand in saving Zoro. And this gives Zoro the time he needs to pretty much burst out of his bandages. And him and Sanji both make simultaneous attacks on King and Queen. So next we have chapter 1023, Spitting Image. So the fight between Zoro and Sanji versus King and Queen pretty much start off with King trying to attack Sanji while Sanji's focused on Queen, but Zoro stopping that, and then Queen trying to attack Zoro, and then Sanji stopping that attack. Hyogoro is pretty much watching this fight, stating how Zoro reminds him of Shimotsuki Ushimaru, one of the previous daimyo of Wano before Kaido took over. So we got Inuarashi fighting Jack. We have Nekomamushi fighting Peril Sparrow, and we got Raizo still fighting Fukurokoju. And then we end the chapter with seeing Momonosuke. And finally, he's now 28 years old in his dragon form. So he's now a big dragon. We don't really see Momonosuke in his human 28-year-old form just yet, but he is currently in his adult dragon form, about the size of Kaido. So next we have chapter 1024, So and So. So we see the battle of Onigashima is still raging on. The Straw Hats have defeated their Tobiropo fights, and now they're rejoining the main battle. We see Yamato, a pretty beaten and battered Yamato, still fighting Kaido. So we get a flashback of Kaido imprisoning Yamato with the 3 rebel daimyo. And his hopes is kind of that these daimyo might potentially kill Yamato, because that's also what Yamato was believing, that they would kill her for being Kaido's offspring. But Yamato ended up befriending these daimyo, and they gave her the food. They listened to, they wanted to read Odin's journal that she had. They end up becoming friends with her and encouraging her. And then they end up busting out of the prison, going off to confront Kaido, which, presumably they died. in that scuffle. So next we have chapter 1025, Twin Dragons. So we see Momonosuke is still, having that fear to fly. But, Luffy eventually motivates him to fly. And he does. But when he starts flying, he doesn't really have control, mostly because he has his eyes closed and he's just flying through Onigashima, and everybody else is kind of shocked. Like, what was that, Kaido? What's going on? Like, what is the dragon? Who is the dragon? So, people are kind of shocked of why this dragon is flying through Onigashima. So we see Yamato fighting Kaido, and she manages to get some good attacks on Kaido, but Kaido is still pretty much in control of that fight, as he kind of has been through all these fights. Not only is he in control of this fight, he's provoking her, just pretty much saying a lot of, things that is upsetting her, but she can't really do much to gain the advantage in this fight. At the end, and then we end this chapter seeing Kaido confront Momonosuke and Luffy in his dragon form as well. So we see Momonosuke in his dragon form, and we see Kaido confronting them in his dragon form. So next we have chapter 1026, the pivotal clash. So Luffy and Momonosuke sort of teams up on Kaido. Momonosuke takes a bite out of Kaido in his dragon form, both of them in their dragon forms. And while Momonosuke has a hold of Kaido, Luffy uses this as an opportunity to punch Kaido in the face. So Luffy uses this feat that Momonosuke did to motivate Momonosuke. Say, look, you just bit a Yonko of the sea, so you shouldn't be scared of anything. So then Luffy pretty much used this motivation as a way to command Momonosuke to stop Onigashima from basically falling on the flower capital. So we cut to Inuyasha and Nekomamushi. They're both down because now they can't really go into their Sulong forms because the clouds that both of the dragons have been creating have covered up the moon. So now Perospero and Jack both have the advantage in their fights. But right after, we see Kaido and Luffy both clash, splitting the skies, and then eventually clearing out the moon, which this gives Nekomamushi and Inuyasha a chance to go back into their Sulong forms and finish off Jack and Perospero. So now we have chapter 1027, Danger Beyond Imagining. So Luffy commands Yamato to pretty much go assist Momonosuke in stopping Onigashima from falling on the flower capital. Now Kaido tries to go to attack Momonosuke, but he's stopped by both Yamato and Luffy. So Momonosuke sees how close Onigashima is to falling to arrive into the flower capital. So now he has to pretty much race to create enough clouds in order to stop Onigashima. Then we cut to where Zoro is, where Zoro, Sanji, King, and Queen are. And King is going on a rampage, just indiscriminate rampage of just attacking whoever's around. And, he's pretty much pissed because Zoro cut his mask open just a little bit to where you can see a portion of his face. And that pretty much sent King on his rampage that he's on. So moving on to chapter 1028, Bronchiosnakis. So the CP0 agents are pretty much reporting to Rob Lucci that there has been another dragon that arrived. That now there's two dragons. And that this second dragon is probably from the artificial devil fruit that Vegapunk made that they thought failed. Rob Lucci, he listens to what they're saying. He listens to their report. He acknowledges it, and then he tells them, on the off chance that Kaido is defeated, the world government will be taking over Wano and occupying it. And He also orders the two CP0 agents to capture Robin. Regardless of what happens, capture Robin. If especially if Kaido loses, capture Robin. If Robin dies, I guess it doesn't matter. But if Kaido loses, capture Robin. So as Momonosuke has to figure out how to create these clouds and enough of them to stop Onigashima, Yamato goes off to do something about the explosives in the armory. Back on the performance floor, we see Queen shoot his neck out of his body, like detach his neck off his body, and then he pretty much wraps Sanji around almost like a snake. And after wrapping Sanji around, his body has these guns, these big guns, and they shoot him and Sanji together. Even though his intention wasn't to shoot himself, he still managed to shoot himself as well as Sanji. And this pretty much leaves Sanji's body all mangled up. It leaves Sanji's body mangled, and Queen, back to his normal body. Queen goes in for attack with his sword, slashing down on Sanji's body, but his sword breaks. Queen's sword breaks. And, him and Sanji are both kind of looking at it like, what? Like, what's going on with this guy's body? Even Sanji's pretty shocked about it. Next, we have chapter 1029, The Tower. So Sanji is pretty much trying to register what's going on with his body. What's the deal with his body, right? And at the same time, you got Queen, who's still kind of pressing offense, still kind of trying to attack Sanji while he's demanding to see this raid suit. Because Queen really wants to see the technology of Sanji's raid suit. So cutting to where Big Mom, Law, and Kid is, Law is trying to fight Big Mom as well as protect Kid, because Kid seemed to be going through something. Law doesn't understand, nor does Big Mom, but Law kind of has to protect him while fighting Big Mom as well. And then we cut to Killer and Hawkins. Now Killer is trying to reason with Hawkins like, hey man, let's fight, like let's do a fair fight. He's trying to reason with Hawkins, but Hawkins doesn't really care to hear it. And so after kind of taking advantage of his ability, Killer happens to cut Hawkins' left arm. Now, since Kid doesn't have a left arm, this actually affected Hawkins. This actually affected Hawkins' normal body, and Hawkins' left arm got cut off as well. And Killer used this opportunity to free Kid from Hawkins' control. Now, despite all this, Hawkins isn't really fully done this fight yet, so he goes for one last attack, but Killer pretty much finishes off Hawkins and defeats him. Next, we have chapter 1030, Echoing the Impermanence of All Things. So X-Drake encounters Apu, who is hanging around with a couple numbers. I think it's like 3 of them. And Apu suggests an alliance between the two in order to take out whoever is the victor between this battle. Now, Nami and Usopp's group encounters the bottom half of Kinemon's body. Now, Kinemon happened to survive this assault from Kaido because his body was never fully reattached after his encounter with Law back in Punk Hazard. So this misstep has been what Kinemon needed in order to continue surviving, because we all know how lucky Kinemon can be. Kanjuro is also still managed to be alive, still managed to survive, and we see Orochi pretty much commanding Kanjuro with his last breath to keep fighting, to keep pushing, to do something. And Kanjuro happened to summon the apparition Kazembo with the rest of his life that he has left. He happened to summon this Kazembo apparition. CP0 is also on the move among all this chaos, and Kid and Law both awaken their devil fruit abilities and manage to bury Big Mom under a pile of steel beams, with Kid's awakened devil fruit ability. Next, we have chapter 1031, Warrior of Science. So Big Mom is still buried under all of these steel beams that kid pretty much buried her under, and but she eventually recovers, and she immediately, after recovering, immediately she snatches the souls of all these Beast Pirate soldiers around her, and she uses that to power herself up. So we see X Drake must have refused to join Apu because when we see him, they're fighting. You know, they're fighting. Drake's not having it. Drake's at the moment. Drake's loyalty is with the Straw Hat Alliance, and but their fight is immediately sort of interrupted by Yamato, who's trying to make her way to the armory. Now she's not really focused on what they're doing, even though Apu somehow convinces Yamato that Drake is her enemy, and then Yamato attacks. She clashes with X Drake, but X Drake said, "Look, I'm not training me either." So then she just kind of decides to continue to run off, and that's when we see one of the numbers take off after her as well. Next, we see the CP0 agents. They're pursuing Robin and Brooke. You know, they're already on the move for that. They're already like, "Hey, let's just get her right now." But Brooke manages to escape, at least for the moment, with Robin. At least for the moment. We cut to Sanji, who is accused of hitting one of these geisha girls, these servant girls, and Sanji takes that hard because he doesn't really remember what happened. He doesn't remember hitting her, but he believes that he had to be the one to hit her, and it might be an effect of his body evolving possibly from the raid suit. So he's kind of having an inner conflict with himself of if he wants to keep the raid suit in order to be strong for Luffy, or if he wants to still be himself and just not be as strong. So out of fear that he might be changing into something that he doesn't want to become, Sanji asks Zoro to pretty much kill him. If he's not the same Sanji at the end of this battle, he asks Zoro to kill him. And Zoro reluctantly agrees. I don't know if I'll say reluctantly. He seemed kind of excited to agree, if you ask me. So next we have chapter 1032, Odin's Beloved Blade. So the spirit Kazanbo is causing all this havoc, making his way to the armory where the explosives are, and burning everything and everybody in his path to get there. We cut to Apu. He pretty much sees CP0, and Apu being the information broker, he's taking pictures of CP0 because he figured, hey, maybe he can sell these pictures, make some money. And CP0 pretty much use a finger pistol to put down Apu. The CP0 agent runs into X Drake, who, you know, they're familiar of who X Drake is, and they attempt to do the same to X Drake as well, but he's stopped by Apu, who's not fully down yet. And then we see Apu and X Drake do a combination attack, attacking both of the CP0 agents. So cutting to Zoro and King, we see them two fighting, and Zoro's pretty much just having trouble actually damaging King. You know, he's having trouble actually inflicting damage on King. You know, partially because it's hard for him to actually reach King, and the other reason is because King has a special type of body. So we see Zoro kind of down from one of King's attacks, and Zoro hears this shamisen being played, and after hearing the shamisen being played, we see Zoro's sword Emma react to the shamisen. Like, it starts reacting. And then we cut to where Orochi is, and we see Hiyori, or Kamarasaki to Orochi. They're playing her shamisen, and, you know, she's pretty much confronting Orochi. Next, we have chapter 1033, Shimotsuki Kazaboro. So we get Queen having a dialogue with Sanji, talking about how King comes from a special race of people called the Lunarians. and he speaks on how they're natural survivors, how they're tough, how they can survive in any natural environment, and that being the reason why Sanji won't be able to actually hurt King. So then, an attack from King causes Zoro to lose control of his swords, lose possession of his swords, and in that moment of Zoro losing control of his swords, Zoro's kind of recounting like his history, with each of his swords, and kind of why they're special to him. It's almost kind of like he's creating a connection in the middle of this fight. We get a flashback of Zoro when Zoro lived in his old village, and how he forgot he was too young to actually realize he was talking to the same guy that Hitetsu Tengoyama Tengoyama Hitetsu was telling Zoro about he was telling Zoro about the blacksmith that created the Wado Ichimonju and Enma. And Enma and Zoro was reliving his history of that he actually met that guy, Shimotsuki Kuzabara. And his history of how he used to talk to him while he was training, and how Shimotsuki Kuzabara would tell him about how swords have personalities, and how cursed swords are really just high quality swords with strong personalities. Next, we have chapter 1034, Sanji versus Queen. So we see Queen pretty much copying the attacks, the special attacks of all of Sanji's brothers, kind of taunting him, saying, like, hey, I can do everything that your family's technology could do. Queen eventually even shows that he can even go invisible, kind of like Sanji's stealth black raid suit can do. And Queen goes in for attack of that same girl that Sanji thought he hurt, but really it was Queen. We find out that it was Queen because Queen kind of has a grudge against this girl, because kind of like Kamarasaki or Lady Hiyori, Queen has a crush on this girl as well, and she really doesn't reciprocate the feelings towards Queen. So he goes in to attack her, and that really pretty much pisses off Sanji, even though he's invisible. So Sanji pretty much catches Queen before he can attack this girl. And Sanji sends Queen pretty much flying. And then finally we have chapter 1035, Zoro versus King. So we see Sanji pretty much kick Queen off of Onigashima, and Queen is pretty much defeated. So Zoro pretty much lands a clean slash on King's face, or where his mask is, not necessarily injuring King, but he rips the mask enough for King to have to take the mask off and discard it. And we see some Beast Pirate subordinates talk about how King has a 100 million berry, not bounty, but like just for tipping off the government of King, you could get 100 million berries for it. And then King gets mad after hearing that, and he attacks those Beast Pirates. So we get a flashback of how Kaido and King met. Kaido pretty much frees King from his imprisonment, which Kaido seemed to be like. Kaido was also in prison there too, because we see shackles on Kaido's wrist, and he frees King, and he also offers King the chance to join his crew. And King even asked him like, "Hey, can you change the world?" And Kaido said, "Look, I'm the only person who can change the world." And this facility, it seems it's like a science facility. It seems like it's most likely Punk Hazard, seeing how we know that Vegapunk did experiments on Kaido, extracted some of his DNA, and he also created the artificial devil fruit that Momonosuke ate at Punk Hazard. So, I kind of take it as that they were at Punk Hazard at this time. And that must also be how Kaido was able to get the numbers under him to get the numbers because they were also created at Punk Hazard. So King and Zoro's having a very, intense fight. Zoro's trying to figure out a way to actually hurt King and get around his defense, figure his body out. And Zoro, he manages to figure out how King's body worked because even King says it. He said, "Oh, you managed to figure me out, huh?" And King goes for a big attack, and Zoro manages to cut through it and cut King. He uses his knowledge, and he happens to be able to damage King and cut him. Presumably, he actually wins the fight, but that's where that chapter ends, and we won't really know to chapter 1036, which drops after New Year's in 2022. And there you have it, guys. That is pretty much the rundown. That's pretty much the recap of what we got in 2021. It was a great year in One Piece. I'm hoping 2022 is even better because Wano has been heat. This whole arc has been heat. And I'm still expecting that it's going to continue to be heat. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed 2021 year of One Piece just as much as I do. And I hope you guys roll with me through 2022 as One Piece continues to be great and this channel continues to improve. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and help grow with me. Let's ensure that 2022 is a good year for this channel. Anyway, guys, it's your boy Sean Peter Blumf God. Hey, and I'm out of here. Peace.